You nailed that. Oh, that was gorgeous. By the way, that was the first song that was sung. It was sung on the very first Sunday that I was with you. Yeah, so it's a nice bookend. Thank you so much. Well, what have I learned about you and New York since arriving in January 2025? Well, New York, New York, a hell of a town. The Bronx is up and the Battery's down and the people ride in a hole in the ground. New York, New York, it's a hell of a town. And indeed it is, and so are you, All Souls, a heck of a congregation. So my reflections today are entitled Lessons Learned from Sidewalk to Sanctuary, because the walk from the apartment to the subway, from the subway to the church, and through other parts of the city has provided me some important lessons, not only about the meaning of life and the universe and everything, but also about you, All Souls, and about interim and transition ministry, and what we've experienced together for these past 6 months. So as I think about when I first started with you, I had, shall we say, some assumptions about New York. And although I did live in New York briefly in the 80s, and I should know better, I didn't realize that I had absorbed some stereotypes about New Yorkers that living here proved wrong. And one of them was that New Yorkers were brusque to the point of being downright rude. Truth in Advertising, one of my favorite scenes from the 1969 film Midnight Cowboy, some of you may have seen that film, is when Ratso Rizzo, played by Dustin Hoffman, nearly gets hit by a cab. And what's he say? He yells, "I'm walking here," in his best New York accent. But you know, experience has taught me that rudeness is just not true. I have personally experienced dozens of unsolicited kindnesses from strangers, like the time that I found myself in Queens instead of the Upper West Side. Rookie mistake. And a man on the subway helped me get on the right train. And another time someone told me that my backpack was hanging open. Better zip it up, he said. Or a woman introduced me to the app as to how to find public restrooms in Manhattan. That was really useful. So the ways in which New Yorkers are truly kind to each other and kind to the hordes of tourists has been a delightful discovery. So I wondered then, why is it easier to be kind to strangers than it is to people closest to you? I mean, shouldn't the opposite be true? So when I arrived at All Souls, I told you that my job was to observe you, to listen to your stories, and then to interpret those stories in light of my work as a transitional minister. And I heard so many good, positive, and uplifting stories about All Souls, about how this congregation has transformed your life, the lives of your children, why you make this place your spiritual home. And I've heard hard stories too. Stories of congregational meetings that ended in shouts, the equivalent of verbal fisticuffs, of people not being especially kind or thoughtful or restrained in speech with one another. So why is that, my fellow spiritual travelers? I thought about this. Why is that? Well, I think the answer is actually quite obvious. It's in that phrase, familiarity can breed contempt. And in some ways, it is easier to be kind to the stranger that you meet on the street than to your own family, because that stranger you're likely not to have to deal with over and over again, because in your own family, you know that Uncle Joe is going to start his old familiar rant at Thanksgiving, or to put in the congregational setting, you know that Ms. Jones is going to get up at the annual meeting and make the same speech she's made for the past 12 years about getting rid of paper cups at coffee hour. Not that that ever happens here, though. But this is a spiritual community indeed, but it's not Shangri-La, and it's not even the promised land. Church is where we get to bring the kindness from the street into the sanctuary and into our shared life. We talk a lot here about developing spiritual practices, and sometimes people will say, well, what does that really mean? Do I have to sit down and chant and meditate for an hour every day? Do I have to get on my knees and pray? Well, you could. That's one form of spiritual practice. But at a minimum, church is the place where we get to engage in the spiritual practice of being our best human selves with one another. It's where we can learn what behaviors to ignore, and I've discovered that New Yorkers are masters at that, which behaviors must be addressed, and finally, which ones must not be tolerated. So how do we make that distinction in spiritual community? Well, one of the most important lessons I learned from my mother, and this was her sort of, the way that she discerned child rearing and discipline, was distinguishing behaviors which were merely annoying versus ones which were wrong or harmful. So slamming the door, leaving the lights on around the house, annoying. Lying, cheating, stealing were morally wrong. So likewise, developing forbearance for your fellow church members' annoying habits is one thing, but when speech or behavior threatens the health of the institution, of the body of the church, it must be addressed. So in my time with you, I invited Reverend Dr. Teresa Cooley, whose book, The Blessings of Congregational Conflict, to offer a workshop and a sermon on how congregations deal with the inevitable conflicts that arise. It is natural, it is normal. And I don't find that All Souls is currently mired in conflict, which is great. But the best time to understand and practice conflict transformation in a healthy and productive manner is actually when there is none. So it will serve you well while you are in this time of transition to explore how do we deal with conflict here in a healthy and productive way. So another lesson I've learned from the sidewalks of New York is now I can spot the tourists. Yeah. You know how I know? You know, they're not the ones that are always going like this, although sometimes they are. They are the ones patiently standing at the corner, waiting for the pedestrian signal to change from wait to walk. I did too when I first arrived. I'm a Midwesterner. I'm from Ohio. We are rule followers. But for most New Yorkers, why stop the flow just because the minute counter is already at 0? And unless there is traffic barreling down the street, you just got to keep moving. You don't want to stop the forward momentum unless you absolutely have to. I love that about New York. I love the sort of salmon-like flow of human beings and this forward motion as we move together in a common rhythm. So continuing on that theme from sidewalk to sanctuary, when I arrived in January, it felt to me that you had lost a little bit of your flow. You'd been through a challenging year and also a celebratory year, and closed out an important chapter, a really important chapter in your congregational life. But you were a little tired and perhaps a little wary about what would come next. But it wasn't too long in this ministry that you got your mojo back. You got your rhythm, and with it came this incredible forward momentum, ideas, programs, suggestions, hopes, dreams, thousands of emails, strategic imperatives started popping up, and you didn't want to stop for the wait sign. Instead, you grooved along like all those New Yorkers with the Taylor Swift lyrics in your earbuds. Got to keep cruising, can't stop, won't stop moving. We are all souls, and we got things to do. But here's another circumstance where this analogy from the street to the sidewalk, the street to the sanctuary may be helpful. Earlier this week, I was walking down 2nd Avenue and the pedestrian signal blinked red. Now I've been here long enough, I know that just means I need to go. So I looked down the street, there was no traffic coming that I could see. I stepped out onto the street, only to realize that the people behind me, all of them, were still waiting on the corner as a cab rolled down the street between them and me. How did I not see that cab? Because I looked down the one-way street in the wrong direction. This is a bad idea. Now, fortunately, I didn't have to do the Ratso Rizzo yell and say, "I'm walking here," because I ran across the street and averted disaster. But all of this is to say that sometimes during periods of major transition, you may need to slow down and look twice before making major changes. You'll need to be patient with periods of time when it appears that nothing is happening. Everything in congregational life takes twice as long as you think it should, and during times of transition, it may take even longer. There's a lot to do, and you have just only begun. Learning about your history and how that has shaped your identity as All Souls on the Upper East Side is part of the work. That takes time. Exploring all of your systems, such as how you welcome new members, how you're nurturing to families with children and youth, how to minister to young adults, how to provide a safe space for groups with historically marginalized identities, how you understand professional ministry now in the 21st century, how you undertake a more nuanced understanding of undermining white supremacy culture. Oh, and yes, and how you as a congregation fight the rise of classism, sexism, homophobia, transphobia, racism, fascism, Christian nationalism, and authoritarianism. That's going to take some time. It's a little bit corny to say this, but during periods of transition, the journey is the destination. And what you don't want to do is be looking in the wrong direction and get smacked by that metaphorical cab driver, setting back your hopes and dreams for an indefinite period of time. So the third lesson I've learned from the sidewalks and the subways of New York is the ways in which New Yorkers make space for each other. Some days I have felt like I'm part of this enormous ballet as my fellow New Yorkers and I dance around each other, smoothly avoiding collisions on corners and sidewalks, navigating joggers and strollers and dog walkers and headphone talkers and scooters and bikers and strikers, all navigating the streets and subways with an astonishing grace. And I love the way we scooch over to make way to squeeze one more behind on the subway seat. Our shoulders and our knees touching and not touching, sometimes even falling into each other when the subway lurches, self-correcting with an appropriate apology. There's a lot we can learn from the streets that we can take into the sanctuary. We've had many full Sundays, concerts, programs these past 6 months when we needed to make space for each other. But in this congregation, we also need to make another kind of space together, space for the new, the different, the innovative. We need to make space for the inevitable changes that new leadership, new members, new ministry will bring. Now, one of the assumptions that I brought to this ministry was that because you are now over 200 years old and you've had very long tenured ministries, that you would not be open to or adaptable to change. And truth be told, I haven't been here long enough to see whether this assumption is completely true. But part of the wisdom of having a longer process of discernment regarding your next senior minister is to examine what aspects of your congregational culture, habits, and patterns have served you well and you wish to continue, or which no longer serve you or would be less attractive to people who haven't even attended All Souls yet. So I would encourage you not to rush the process of this interim time, whether it leads you into a 1-year, 2-year, or possibly even a longer period known as developmental ministry. And as Rilke reminds us, he said, be patient towards all that is unsolved in your heart, and try to love the questions themselves. Do not seek the answers which cannot be given you, because you would not be able to live them. And the point is to live everything. Live the questions now. And perhaps you will then gradually, without noticing it, live along some distant day into the answer. There is so much I wish I could say, but one 15-minute sermon cannot fully capture this intense time in your life and in mine. And we are both entering a new chapter, me into the time of not serving as a full-time senior minister for the foreseeable future, and you beginning a new ministry. So this morning's reading, Do You Know My Name?, was penned by me, by yours truly, and it was written to capture the feeling of saying goodbye to one minister and hello to the next. And I fully expect that this time next year you will be as familiar with Reverend Elaine as you have become with me, probably, certainly even more so. So I came to All Souls not because I needed a job or because I was enamored of your reputation, or even because I yearned to live in New York. I came here because I believe in the health and vitality of Unitarian Universalism, and I believe it is enhanced when our largest congregations are strong and solid. I believe in the values we share and a commitment to those values in all that we do. I believe in the power of community to change heart and mind and lives. I believe that together we can and must bend that moral arc of the universe always towards justice, towards equity and inclusion, towards the things that make for peace. What I didn't know until I got here and got to know you is that I would come to believe in you, in the power of your passion, your vision, your commitment, in the strength of your hope and dreams for the future of the congregation. I believe in you because you have the cool, clear eyes of a seeker of wisdom and truth. Yet there's that upturned chin and the grin of impetuous youth. Oh, I believe in you. I believe in you. I hear the sound of good, solid judgment wherever you talk. Yet there's the bold, brave spring of the tiger that quickens your walk.
Feel your hand grasping mine, and I take take heart to see the cool, clear eyes of a seeker of wisdom and truth. Yet with the big, bold faith in a future you cannot dispute. Oh, I believe in you. Oh, I believe in you.
Thank you. Before we sing, I got something else to say, so have a seat. So one of the symbols of professional ministry is the robe and the stole. And while I wear these for other occasions, when I wear it here in this sanctuary, it is in my role as one of your ministers. But in every minister's life, there comes a day when you must take off the robe and the stole and lay it down. And whether leaving one church for another or retiring from professional full-time ministry, the robe comes off. So I do want to say, although the closing hymn speaks of laying one's burden down, I want to be very clear that serving as your bridge minister these past 6 months has not been a burden. It has been a joy. And indeed, there's a lot of work left to do, but it is a joyful work. And so before we sing our closing hymn, I'm going to remove the robe and stole. But there is another identity underneath this robe, one that you have given me, so bear with me for a moment. This does feel a little odd. Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. And that identity is?